Jacqueline Sandoval is a gospel-singing real estate agent whose tendencies to spread love, joy, and the songs in her heart are often felt by those around her. This is her son, too adorable not to include, singing loud and proud 10 years ago on a road trip with his mom about laying your burdens down. Ironically, it was around this same time Jackie had decided to do just that, and up until now, she's kept that burden a secret.
It's taken a lot of courage because it's embarrassing to tell people I had a gambling addiction. But I'm at that point in my life where someone can benefit from what I'm saying. I'm having a son now that's a teenager, young adult, I should say. I don't want him to go down the same paths that I went down. It's just been scary. Nobody's said these words to me, but in my mind, putting myself out there to tell my story, all I can hear is voices saying, how can I trust you? Like, if you were lying in that part of your life, how do I know that you're not lying now? Scary. Very scary.
Well, and I love asking people those questions because the voice of shame is there to keep us as safe as possible, right? And so it tells us all of the worst case scenarios to keep us silent. But what I have found to be true is that the more we talk about these things, the freedom, right? There's so much more freedom. So how many people have you told before?
Honestly, I didn't even tell my immediate family till about 4 or 5 years ago. And some people don't know, so they'll find out now, because I didn't even want to say I had a problem. You know, everybody's like, oh, you can live with, I live with it. I'm going to work, I'm perfectly fine. Look at me, here's my smiles. But then when you go home, it's not all smiles.
What are your triggers today?
Oh, sadness, depression, anxiety. But me calling it now depression, anxiety, sadness, that's me now. But when I was going through it, I couldn't call it that because I didn't know. I just knew I was lonely, and I knew that when I walked into a space of a casino, I was loved. I have to say there's different forms of gambling, right? I was one of those where you went in and sat down at a table and you were playing cards. And at most tables, they'll sit anywhere from 6 people to 8 people. So it almost gives you a family-like feel of sitting down at a table. And then the dealers, you've got the same dealers. It's their job. They're going there 5 days a week. So you're walking into a space like, oh, well, there's my friend. Hey, how you doing? Oh, yep, I'm gonna come sit at your table. And they're like, no, come over here, come over here. It feels like you're sitting down at a table to eat dinner. Hey, how's your family doing? How's your daughter? Did the soccer game go well? You're talking very personally and intimately to where when you are a lonely person and you're feeling like you're alone. I don't want to say I was alone. When I was feeling alone and feeling sad, I know where I can go and be happy. Then as you're winning money, now you're getting the affirmations, right? Of you're doing great, you're doing wonderful. Keep going, put more down, put more down. The encouragement I was getting in that moment, what I thought was love and attention and admiration and all the things that I felt that I was missing in life.
Jacqueline Sandoval can trace the feelings of being unchosen and unwanted all the way back to her childhood.
I had a good life. I didn't have a bad life. But I always felt like I was not the person that people wanted. I was the girl that didn't get asked to dances. I remember when there was like your homecoming king, queen, princess, and same thing with your prom. I remember I kept saying, if only they would nominate me, I would just be ecstatic. Not only did I not get nominated, I didn't even get asked to go. I would tell the guys, hey, if you go with me, I will rent your suit or your tux. I'll pay for dinner. My mom even wanted me to go so bad that she would say, well, if you find them, we'll make sure everything is taken care of. I remember one time one of the girls that was on the cheerleading team was like, are you coming to the dance? And I was like, no, I don't have a date. She went home, asked her older brother, and he took me out of pity. So I've always had those phases where I didn't feel like I was wanted. I didn't feel like people wanted me around. But at the same time, there was always people around. I just never felt like I stood out. I never felt like people understood me, people got me. I just really felt lonely. Now, I have to say, I played soccer. I was on select traveling teams from Washington to Canada to San Diego. So I got picked for things. I was on the cheerleading team. I was on a traveling track team, 4x4, 4x1. Like, that was only 4 girls that got chosen to do that. So looking back, it's like you were chosen at times. You just weren't chosen in the way that you wanted to be chosen. I wanted to be chosen because I was beautiful. I wanted to be chosen because I wanted people to be like, I want to be around you. I want to be your best friend. I want you to come to the parties. I want you to do this. I spent most of my days at home. And the crazy thing is like, if you ask people, like even when I see people from my younger years, they all say, no, Jackie was one of the most popular kids in school. I mean, I was popular because, no offense, I was one of the only Black people at the school. Like, that's why I feel like I was popular. I did not feel in my heart I was popular because people liked me. I felt like I was popular because I was one of a few and stood out. I couldn't tell you who my best friend was because I didn't have a best friend. I'll never forget that time when I was younger where I was like, this is my best friend. And then somebody asked her who her best friend was, and it wasn't me. And I was like, I don't understand, because we talk on the phone every day. We hang out at school. I'm at your house. I even call your mom, Mom. She didn't look at me like that. And then there's that one issue. The one issue of the one person I wanted to want me didn't. And that was my father. And now, going forward, I see a family member, my son. I know there's one person that he's always wanted to want him.
Jacqueline got together with her son's father when she was in her late teens. He was only the second guy she had dated, but the first guy she actually felt like she liked, who also liked her back.
There was a really nice guy that was the first boyfriend, but once again, I ended up with him because he gave me attention, not because I actually liked him. So the second boyfriend, I don't know, I was really liked him. And I felt like he liked me.
He was the one who introduced her to the world of gambling.
I'll never forget the first time he was like, have you ever been to a casino? Let's go. We literally drove up there with a quarter of a tank of gas, and Toppenish is like almost an hour away from the Tri-Cities. And we're like, well, guess what? We're going to win some money and then we'll get back. And the first few times we did, but I was with somebody that I liked. And so that's what made it so exciting. As, got out of high school, I moved out of my mom's house. Then those trips turned into, crap, we've got rent. We've got rent we've got to pay. We've got this. Well, let's go up there and see if we can have extra money. I had a job, but at the same time, it was like I was 19 and didn't have a lot of extra. So that's what it was. And that person that I really thought that I loved and cared for, that was part of what we were. And then we got to 21 and we had our son. And his father and I broke up a month before I had him. He chose someone else. He didn't want me. So my son has primarily known me to be the single mother. And the one thing I didn't want is I never wanted my son to feel the way that I felt, because that is the worst feeling.
Jacqueline's heart was breaking all over again. For the second time, a man she longed to feel chosen from was walking out of her life. And this time, he was abandoning her son too.
My dad not being there was his choice. My son's father not being there was his choice of not being there. It does lead to a lot of, how do we feel that boy? It led to more drinking. And it led to just a lot of me saying I'm okay and going home and not being okay. And so gambling was that filler. I just was like, why do men not want me? Okay, well, I'm gonna go where I'm wanted. And entering into more spaces of gambling put me in a space of whether they was cute men, not cute men, cute people, it didn't matter. People wanted me. So I thought.
Gambling would slowly start to take over Jacqueline's life.
I was an active member of my church, and I would go to church, get done with church at about 12:30, and drive straight to a casino. And I'd sit at the casino until probably about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I would actively pursue finding people to take my son so I could go gamble. Because I love my son, but I would sit at home and be like, is this all there is? There's got to be more to this. Well, let me go have him play over here and I can go feel loved and wanted. There were a lot of times where it was, Mom, can you take him? Asking my sister, can you watch him? I'll be back. Can you just watch him? I have to acknowledge she had him a lot. Which was an easy out for me. My sister and I are 10 years apart. So when I had him at 21, from 21 to 25, she was 11 to 15. Perfect age for babysitting, right? She wasn't gonna go anywhere. And at that age, he was cute. She loved having him around. So it allowed them to have a really good and close relationship. But I would leave him because I wanted to go get my validation and my fill. So the extent of the gambling was starting to reveal itself, right? That old saying, what's done in the dark always comes to light. I was managing apartments. In the apartments that I lived in, they paid my rent, They paid for my electricity. I didn't have to worry about where we were going to live. And I got a paycheck. So I would literally get my check at 8 or 9 o'clock, right? It hits that direct deposit. And then I would leave at lunchtime and go and gamble away my entire paycheck. And then I would come back to work, because I was only supposed to take about 30 minutes. I'd be gone for an hour, and I gambled away my whole paycheck. And I would come back and be like, crap, we don't have any food. But I sat there and go, well, we have a place to live. We can always go to mom's house and get food. We can always, I can get over there and say, Mom, I'm a little short. Can I get some gas money? And the question would always be, where is all your money going? Lies. If you figure out just different ways to cover up what you're actually doing, and then you go, oh, now you calling me a liar? Like, I'm not a liar. You just don't believe me. And I think that that's messed up. So now you're deflecting. And when they're just like, what are you talking about? Like, you're the one that's lying, I even got to the point where I went into the dollar store and I stole us some food and some cleaning supplies. And I did it from the dollar store because I was being very calculated. I knew that if you stole a certain amount, it could be considered a worse crime. But the dollar store, everything's like $1. I only needed enough to get us through a little bit of time. The biggest thing that I ended up doing is pretty sad, actually. So as I was gambling away my entire paychecks, it then came to the point of where I learned about overdraft protection. I have to also say, before overdraft protection, I was also doing payday loans. Payday loans, you get the money, it's got this large fee on it, you pay it back. And I was like, this is ridiculous. That's when I found out that the bank had overdraft protection. And one of the tellers accidentally told me, you've got $1,000 worth of overdraft protection. I was like, cool. Ain't no thing but a chicken wing, right? And so as I took money out of the ATM, I then would go and gamble and lose that. So now I'm like, oh crap, I've now overdrafted myself to the point that even when a check got put in, it still wouldn't even cover what the overdraft was. So it's like, well, what can we do? I had a car at the time, and I was 3 months behind in the car. And I remember calling up a family member, and I was in tears. And that family member didn't want me to lose the car. So she made the payment to catch me completely up. And but I had told her I wasn't getting enough hours. I just wasn't getting enough money. I couldn't tell her I was gambling, because then she wouldn't have paid it and I would have lost my car. So with the payday loans and the overdraft protection, because my name was on my son's account, I then started having my money deposited into his account so I wouldn't lose my money. Then it overdrafted his accounts. And then what I did, you know how you could deposit money through an ATM machine? I would put my card in. I would tell it, because this was back when you had to tell the ATM machine how much you were putting in. I don't know if anybody remembers this. You put it in the envelope and you put that into the ATM machine. I would say I was depositing $800, let's say. And I knew my bank would immediately let me take out $250. So the first time I did it, I got away with it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. When they called me the next day, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to make that mistake. Don't worry, let me bring down the money right now. Because when I took out that $250, I went to the casino and I had won some money and I had enough. Well, about a week goes by. I was like, well, I'm low on money again. Let me try this again. I did it again. They called me and said that this was fraud They not only closed my account, but they closed my son's account. My son had some money in there and they took his money from his account. As a mom, I felt horrible, but I think in the moment I just wanted the money because I needed to get back down to the casino so I could keep gambling. And I didn't lose every single time. I'd win $500, $600. There's a high of when you have money of you have this unrealistic sense of security. When it's a false sense of security.
During this time, she started to date a man who would eventually become her husband. But the first few years of their relationship were pretty rocky. He knew she was gambling, but he didn't want to confront her about it.
He's a non-confrontational person. He's a non-confrontational person. And so I remember telling him, it's 5 o'clock and I'm like, hey, I gotta run to Walmart and I gotta go get some stuff. I'll be back. Can you watch my son? Yep. And I would leave at 5 o'clock and not come home till 3 o'clock in the morning. Never got a phone call, never got anything. But that whole time, I'm on every emotional high of, oh, I've got some money. Yep, I'm doing good. Got all these stacks. I got red chips, green chips, black chips. If you don't know what those are, sorry. Got all these chips in front of me. And then literally within 30 minutes, I'm down to white chips. So now emotionally, now I'm back to being mad, sad, depressed. Oh my gosh, I don't have any money. And I've been here since 5 o'clock. It's 2:30 in the morning. I gotta see what else I can get back because now I gotta go back home where the boyfriend is at and deal with the emotional part of, is he gonna ask me where I've been? Lies. There was just all these lies that were happening, which strained our relationship even more.
Their relationship was on again, off again. Jacqueline was unable to be honest about her addiction, and she also didn't know how to share that she felt lonely. And her boyfriend was unable to communicate his growing frustration. So to him, it just looked like she was constantly leaving and lying to him.
One of the many nights that I was sitting there, this wonderful girl, her name is Sipe. She said, why do you come in here every night? And she's a dealer and she's dealing cards. And I was like, oh, because I like coming in here and seeing my friends and everything like that. And I was the only one at the table and she was there and she looked me in my face and she goes, you know, you don't have to pay us to be your friend. I was like, dang. I was like, really? And I literally just started to cry. We proceeded to have a conversation that night where she said, I can tell you come in here and you're just sad. You're not coming in here for fun. I was like, whoa. So after that, I stopped coming in, but then I missed the people. So I got back onto my little habit of going in. I got home one night at 3 o'clock and I will never forget, my boyfriend was mad. He was yelling like, where did you go? And I was like, but babe, I won $2,500. He's like, I don't care. I know that he's angry and I know that he's mad, but I'm mad too. I'm mad because really, you're sitting up here being mad at me, but you didn't even call me one time while I leave you at 5 and 6 o'clock and not come home to 3 o'clock in the morning. It's because you don't care. You don't want me. You could care less if I was there. My son is safe. I know he's okay. You could care less if I was there. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. That's just how I felt.
Not long after that, the manager of the card room approached Jacqueline. He had seen her come in often and wanted to know if she'd be interested in a job as a dealer.
I was mostly excited because I could make some money and I don't have to lie about going to the casino because I'm gonna go to work. So what ended up happening is I learned how to deal in those card rooms. You get done with your shift, you take your box over. They're like, wow, Jackie, great night. You made 400 and whatever dollars. They hand me the cash. I then would turn around and go sit down at a table and gamble away the money I literally just made that night. And I would gamble it away in like 30 minutes. I did that for probably about 2 years, which is insane.
To make matters worse during that time, Jacqueline lost her job managing apartments. She found herself fully relying on income as a dealer, and for the first time in a long time, also having to pay her own rent. It was too much to manage, and she ended up losing her apartment as well.
That's when I started saying, okay, we've got to make some life changes. I was going to church a lot and I was praying more, and I'm telling you, the Lord was working on me. He says, I'm providing everything you need. You're the one not managing it well.
She knew something had to change, so she purchased a small safe, coming up with a system to start saving more and gambling less.
$100 bills were not to be spent. And I'd put the money in there, lock it up, and I would put it away, out of sight, out of mind. And I said, let's just see. Man, when it came time for rent, it was so dope because rent, I think at the time was $900. I was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I'm like, girl, you got money left over. Don't spend it. You put that back in there. And I took that. It was at that point I learned how to start to manage my money. I could still gamble, but I would do things like leaving my debit card at home to where I couldn't go to the ATM machine. That was my way of, I can manage this. I can do good.
And things did get better. Eventually, Jacqueline and her partner even got married, but he made her promise she would stop gambling completely. And she did. Until one day, while waiting for her husband to get off work, the compulsion to play took over.
I was playing my favorite game, Ultimate Texas Hold'em. And I want to point out, I'm still working at the casino at this time. She gives me my cards. The whole object of this game is to get a royal flush with your 2 cards and the first 3 cards she turns over. So I look at my cards and I have the 10 of clubs and the queen of clubs. That chick flipped over the ace of clubs, the king of clubs, and the jack of clubs. I hit the jackpot! I won $32,000 on that. $32,000.
Jacqueline was so excited to tell her husband they'd finally be able to pay off some debt and afford medical procedures they'd put off for financial reasons.
So he comes home, my husband, and I look at him and I go, babe, I was at work and they rewarded me for all my good deeds. I was joking, but I had to lead into it somehow because I wasn't supposed to be gambling. And he goes, what is it? I go, it's a check. And he goes, why did you get this? I go, babe, I did go in, I put some money down on the table, but I promise you, I only played 2 hands and I won this. Isn't that amazing? He looked at me and said, but you said that you weren't going to gamble anymore. And he walked off. That was the biggest blow. Like, why aren't you excited? Like, we won all this money. But you were gambling and you promised that you wouldn't. I had to sit with that. Like, I had to sit with the fact that I thought this was something cool and I had done something great. And I didn't, because the person that I loved the most was so hurt by it. Gambling can ruin lives, and it does ruin lives.
Jacqueline's road to get more financially secure and overcome her addiction would take a couple years, and along the way, some major mindsets shifted for her.
As I started recalculating how much money I made and stuff like that, I was like, I make enough money. I'm just not doing my money right. It led me to the whole thing of broke is a mindset. Your systems are broken of how you're doing your money, but you're really not broke. Broke is a mindset. So I had to get rid of that whole notion that I was broke. I'm not broke. And that's when we started budgeting. And man, oh man, we budgeted like no tomorrow.
Sticking to a monthly budget was a huge step, but there was something else Jacqueline realized she needed healing for as she sat in church one day, and that was her heart that had first been broken all those years ago as a little girl who so badly just wanted her dad.
I've always been a church girl, always. Most people don't know me to not be in church, but I started actually paying attention. One of the biggest things was there was a sermon that Bishop T.D. Jakes said, and he said the scripture that the biggest command is for us to love the Lord our God with all our heart, our mind, and our soul, and to love thy neighbor as thyself. And he looked in the camera and said, he gave you permission to love yourself. What? So life-changing. I had permission to love myself. So he says, yes, you have permission to love yourself, because once you love yourself, you can love others. You can love me. You can live a fuller life. There's so much that you have to take out of that scripture. I can love myself. And he said, and it's okay. Yeah, you may have funny ears. That's okay. Yeah, you may be a little bit chunky. That's okay. You might be addicted to something, but he wants you to know to love yourself. Now, that does not mean to stay in your addiction. What that means is love yourself enough to come out of that addiction.
Jacqueline has one more song to share. It's the song that helped her love herself, even with her imperfections.
I am who I am today because God used my mistakes. He's working for my good like no one else ever could. I am who I am today because it was necessary.